When did your something is very wrong here? Gut instinct turned out to be right. I had a bad feeling about my aunt's boyfriend. Told my mom he seemed creepy and I didn't want to stay the night there anymore. I got a bit of a lecture for calling him creepy, but she made sure I was never around him alone. And good thing, he turned out to be a child molester who is currently in jail for his involvement in a kiddie prawn ring. 1:30 a.m. leaving a club with a well-lit parking lot. We had just bought a bottled water and were walking to the car. We saw a couple, guy holding girl and girl, throwing up. Offered the guy to give the girl our water. He took a swig, didn't give her any, and put it back in the car they were between. We were a little taken aback and told him to give her the water. He made a vile, disgusting face as if we were cheering him on. We walked a few feet and knew something was wrong. Had the guys we were with check back and he was pants down while she was unconscious. Not puking. He was forcing himself from Bayhinks. From the front, it looked like all clothes were still on. Once discovered, they fell to the floor and she smacked her head on the pavement. My friends beat the garbage out of him and we called the police. Tried to comfort the girl although she was very confused and disoriented. For some reason he was insistent on explaining himself and calling to her by a wrong name. Filed a police report. Found her dumbfounded friends. Answered all of the detectives' questions when they called for a follow-up statement to give to the district attorney. Evil has a feeling. If you see something, say something. Looking dumb or feeling dumb is much less garbage tea than what could actually be happening. My freshman year, my math class had a substitute teacher who we all agreed was really weird and creepy. He really only talked to the girls and made inappropriate comments. For context, this man was easily in his 60s. Well, when our teacher come back the next week, we complained to him about the sub and talked garbage about him being a creeper. The teacher was very upset. He said, "I will not stand sub being disrespected like this. I have known this man for a decade and he is a kind, good man who would never do anything to a student or any person." 1 week later, sub was caught in the middle of the night, breaking and entering a college girl's apartment and I believe trying to sexually assault her or doing some other perverse thing. Teacher came in the next day and apologized. Edit. He was only charged with residential burglary, a felony, but it was a woman's home. At night, driving with a friend of mine through a pretty remote forest road. Couple of guys in the middle of nowhere tried flagging us down. I almost stopped for them before an alarm went off in my head and I stepped on the gas. My friends started saying, "What the foo," and at the same time there was a shot and a bullet hit the back of the car. We made it to a police station. Turns out there had been a bunch of people and vehicles going missing in the area that same week. I love my stepsister to pieces, but she is way too trusting with people she doesn't know well. About 10 years ago she was living with a couple of roommates who became her best friends. She would tell me stories about them over the phone. We lived in different cities, and I would just think, Jesus Christ, these girls are messes. She could hear the wariness in my voice after telling me stories about their troubled lives and how they're really good people who have just been through a lot. Quote, "I didn't buy it. I can't think of all the stories because it's been too long, but they were always sketchy as hell." Cut to my stepsister inheriting $20K from a deceased relative. She was young and super excited about it, and I knew she probably didn't keep the new money a secret. About one fluffing week later, one of her roommates calls her panicking, saying that this guy who she's been talking to online kidnapped her and was holding her for ransom, monsieur, a $15K ransom, monsieur, and she called my stepsister for the ransom, monsieur, not her parents. Her fluffing roommate. She calls me, freaking out because she didn't know what to do. I asked her if she had told her roommate about the money. Of course she did. Move out, sis. GTFO. Those little girls who are really good people but have just been through a lot, yeah, they're liars. She reluctantly followed my advice and thankfully didn't try to make a deal with the monsieur. I told her to call the police. If I remember correctly, she didn't. She still worries me sometimes. I was walking home and a woman approached me to ask for directions. I told her how to get where she wanted to go, but she didn't walk that way, but instead walked beside me and kept pace with me. This made me incredibly uncomfortable. So I said, "Have a nice day," and doubled my speed. Not running, but outpacing her significantly. A moment later, I heard running footsteps. I must have instinctively gripped my purse strap, because I held onto it as she ran by and tried to snatch it. We ended up tussling for a moment. I shouted very loudly, "Help! She's stealing my purse." Neighbors came outside, causing her to walk away. She did not get my purse. Her freshman year of college, a friend and I were driving across town and he stopped for gas. It wasn't a dangerous part of town or anything, just a quiet gas station with an old Buick out front. But this feeling came over me that we needed to get out of there. I tried to shake the feeling by making a joke. "This feels like somewhere an axe-murderer would hide out." My friend immediately gunned it out of there without filling up. He said he had the same feeling, and me bringing it up too scared the garbage out of him. On the way home there were about 20 police cars outside. It turns out some guy shot 2 people in a carjacking and robbery. The Buick was the car he stole. Less dramatic than a lot of others, but nonetheless. Near my old apartment there was a back road that you would take to get to Target. However, you had to go through one stoplight that was just on the other side of a hill's crest from my side. The view is slightly blocked by a building towards the hill's high side. I pull up to the light and wait for it to turn green. It turns, and I wait for a second. The person behind me even honks. But something held me back. Before I can even think about starting to go, one of the open trailer trucks used to move construction equipment comes flying through their red lighting at probably 40 to 50 mph. Not sure if I would have been hit or someone else, but I'm glad I didn't go. I had a bad allergy season which turned into a bad sinus infection which turned into bronchitis. It wasn't getting any better, so I got into a GP. He said it could be bronchitis or something worse. He couldn't call it. As much as I hate hospitals, my gut was screeching at me that something was wrong. Went to just in case. I had multiple pulmonary embolisms. 1 in 3 people with one undiagnosed PE don't make it to the The doc said my lungs glowed in the CAT scan. On the upside, I have a strong heart, so I have that going for me. If you think something is wrong, if you have that creeping, crawling sense of doom, panic, unease, and fear that settled on the back of your mind like a large spider, listen to it. My friend asked me if I wanted to go out to the woods with him and explore abandoned places. He even specifically mentioned that he'll bring a firearm to keep us safe. My alarm bells were fluffing ringing. I asked him a couple questions. I don't know what, but concluded that it was sketchy as fluff. My gut told me not to go, so I exited from the conversation while he went asking others the same question. Fast forward a couple years, I heard that he was in prison. I was stunned, but remembered the memory when he asked me if I wanted to go into the woods. Turns out he took a freshman, him being senior at that time, and kept his promise of looking for abandoned places. He found a cabin in the woods, brought his friend inside, and as soon as his friend turned his back, monsieur knocked dead. He shot him in the back of the head. I reminisce on this quite often and think, what if I had agreed? Every time I think of this, I'm very grateful I'm alive. I pulled into a gas station around 8 to 9 p.m. That wasn't in a ghost town or anything, but it was insanely dark due to the time of year. As I pull towards one of the pumps, I see this dude slowly pacing near the entrance of the convenience store, and we make eye contact. I quickly pulled the car to another pump towards one of the entrances to the gas station. trying to be safer but thinking I'm probably just being paranoid. Once I sit there for a minute and decide to put my car in park, he quickly rushes to my car. By the time I'm back in drive and peel out through the entrance into an oncoming lane, luckily no traffic, I saw him pulling out what looked like a large knife out of his jacket. I'm glad I didn't disregard my gut.